Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. This is City Talk. He's the guardian of the city's fisc. He manages a $105 billion pension investment portfolio. His office has been spied upon by Walmart. He conducts a vigorous foreign policy, and these days he's clean shaven. Must mean he's running for mayor. He's William Thompson, the Comptroller of the City of New York, and we'll talk money, politics, facial hair, money, Walmart, and the 2009 mayoral election, and more. Welcome back, Mr. Comptroller.
Hi, Doug. How are you?
This is the first time I've seen you without your mustache. It looks quite good. It looks better than this old guy in this daily news story. I mean,
mustache? I never had a mustache.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, right.
So, that's someone else.
Wait a second. So, I mean, is it true that this one wise guy says it's a clear physical sign of Billy's intent to run for mayor? Is this it? Is this your announcement?
I don't think it has anything to do with running for mayor. I think it has everything to do with a different look for the summer. And that's basically it. So it wasn't.
Man, well, you expect us to vote.
You may see the mustache back again.
So, if we do, then we have to take this back.
And I expect a full retraction.
And it better have gray in it,
and
like this one does.
And that guy who commented, I'd like to see his comment and retraction then also.
Nice, very nice. I doubt if he's going to do that. Okay. Looking through your website, you really do an incredible amount of things. Foreign policy, national policy. Let's just touch on three of sort of the press releases that struck me. Walmart spying on your office, you suing Yahoo, and Blockbuster. Talk about these big corporations, multimedia. I mean, you're after the big guys. What's the story?
But we always have. If you go back and look at my tenure as comptroller, all the way back to 2002 when I first started, we have done things like filing, and it's shareholder resolutions that we have filed. New York City's pension funds are the most aggressive public pension funds in America. Everything back in 2002 from companies like Halliburton and GE and ConocoPhillips who were doing business through offshore subsidiaries and loopholes in the law in terrorist nations like Iran and Syria, and trying to get them to stop that. Some would say, geez, isn't that foreign policy? My comment is, from our point of view, it's good investing.
Right.
It is trying to prevent companies from doing things that we think in the long run will work against the members of our pension fund. So if you look at a company like Walmart, that did they or didn't they spy on us? We filed 3 shareholder resolutions at Walmart, one that had them look at the business that they're doing and some of the problems that they've incurred across the country, and everything from child labor to preventing unions to a number of other things. We filed another shareholder resolution on the McBride principles to make sure they didn't discriminate in Northern Ireland in the workplace. That seems to be normal business as far as, or at least as far, reaching out, making sure that they don't lose shareholder value. And all of a sudden, we see in the Wall Street Journal that I'm possibly under investigation, or, did Walmart do things like surveillance and others on either myself or people in my office? It's strange.
Oh, this is a plot post-career. After, a couple of decades from now, when you retire from politics, you can write the novel.
It's amazing. So, we wrote on that one. I wrote to the SEC, as well as to the Justice Department, to ask them to do an investigation to find out, did Walmart, not a question of did they, punch my name into Google and but did they engage in something possibly illegal? Not unethical, but illegal.
Wow. Yahoo.
Companies that are doing business all around the world, and we are in a global economy, but now you look at, censorship. So nations like China and others that will prevent full access to the internet. Well, the question is, number one, making sure that people are aware of that the databases that have names in it aren't kept in those countries. They're kept in other places that allow more freedom of press and freedom of access, because you don't want government coming in and seizing the names of people and using it against them. So no, in companies like, Google and Microsoft and Yahoo, making sure that there are certain rules of censorship that they don't fall under, and if they do, that they make sure that people are protected and not at a certain point can't be arrested or politically persecuted because they access the internet or certain information.
Right. What's the next steps?
Well, with these, we continue to bring shareholder resolutions, and I'm proud of the fact that what New York City has done. We never go away. We'll bring a shareholder resolution. It will build. We'll see where we have where voters and shareholders come out this year, and then we'll continue to push and pressure.
Yeah,
these companies.
there is a history here that you continue doing this.
Absolutely.
What about Blockbuster?
Executive compensation, and looking at what we've suggested in some instances isn't that the shareholders vote yes or no, but on an advisory basis, you put executive compensation in front of the shareholders who are the owners of these companies and have them vote on it. It's advisory, but what it starts to tell you are the interests of the executives and the shareholders aligned. Are we moving in a direction? Do the shareholders, the owners of the company, think you're doing the job that you say you are and that you're being paid appropriately?
One of the things, and it's sort of a transition from that you talked about at the conference at Baruch, that Baruch sponsored with the Drum Major Institute, was this hollowing out of the middle class, the loss of middle class people in the city, loss of middle class neighborhoods, and the ability for individuals to live the middle class life. And this wage disparity is part of that. Talk about, you were eloquent about the plight of the middle class. Talk about that.
Well, what you're starting to see is almost a dumbbell effect with, a narrowing in the middle and both ends, both the rich and the poor kind of increasing and what it takes to be or live a middle class life and middle class values in New York City. The one thing that I remember as a kid, and I guess the expectation was always that your children would do better than you did. And so on. Each generation would expect that their children would do better than they did. You're seeing it being very difficult these days in New York City. Increase of housing and just everything costs more. The middle class being pushed out of New York City and not being able to live the American dream. You used to be able to go on vacation for a couple of weeks and own a car and own your own home. You're seeing that change.
First of all, what stops this? It seems inevitable that this becomes sort of Mike Bloomberg's luxury city where it's a high-priced brand name and the market takes over and those of us who aren't making the big bucks move to New Jersey, for example.
Don't you? No, if you look at New York City, people just continue to get pushed out. And it is everything from, I did an op-ed that wound up in the Daily News. And what we said is, look, if you look at tax benefits and tax breaks, JP Morgan Chase was specifically focused on them. It isn't just the jobs that they provide as to the professional workers in the building, which are high salary jobs. What about those who work in the cafeterias? What about the security guards? What about others? What are we paying them? And shouldn't we tie these tax breaks into good paying jobs, not just for the executives and others, but for people who work there, people who work in the service department? So we need, to help protect or increase your middle class, individuals in the city of New York. Why aren't we paying a little more? Why aren't we tying tax breaks into salaries in so many different ways? We need to look for additional ways to be able to bolster the middle class here. At times it's questions of affordability, but it's also making sure that they have access to better jobs in a number of ways. That's all part of it.
And you talked about housing as well. That seems to have the potential for breaking, putting on the brakes on this development. How do we build the housing that's going to accommodate this million people that the Department of City Planning sees coming by 2030?
We have to get smarter in how we build. And I'll give the Bloomberg administration credit for focus on affordable housing and adding to, the affordable base more than you've seen in years and years. But still, we're running in place. As we add units or as we preserve units, we're losing them also.
Right.
Stunning number. It used to be you pay a third of your income. That was the kind of rule of thumb.
Right.
Third of your income for housing and shelter. Right now, 50% or 30% of New Yorkers pay 50% of their income. That's stunning. What else do? You can't afford to do anything else And it's not just ownership. That's for shelter. That's rent. That could be a mortgage, you name it. But it's a stunning number. Look, we have to build. We have to find ways and more creative ways to build. We also, as you're finding out, we did Mitchell-Lama. You know, back in the 60s and 70s, you built units then. Those units are coming out of the program now, and people are being priced out of their homes again. We need to do things that are going to be permanent. We need to do affordable units, low, moderate, middle-income units of housing that'll be here 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road.
Do we have the bucks and the political will to do it?
I think we have the political will. I think if we don't, and it's starting to become more and more of a crisis, and middle-income New Yorkers are screaming about what they're going through, I think we have the political will. The question is, do we have the resources? And I think with some creative financing and looking at, as on this one, as the mayor's put forward, brownfields and others, and
much of his plan at NYC for the 2030.
A lot of that is to find land,
right,
and additional space to be able to do construction on. It's going to require some upzoning in some places, in others it's going to require some downzoning to protect communities. But it's a huge
apartment houses over the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway.
You know something? People had always talked about decking over the BQE and the trench between Brooklyn Heights.
No, that's what I'm thinking of.
You know something? Not a bad idea.
As ugly as the ones over at the George Washington Bridge.
No, you'd like things to look better.
Oh no, this is going to look better. Okay, so you talked about jobs in the economy and housing. The other sort of the plank of the middle class agenda is schools, and you've got great familiarity with the schools, and that's one of your, abiding interests. Right. Talk to us about your vision for the schools, what's right with the schools, what's wrong with the schools. Look at the Bloomberg reforms, where they've gone and where we need to go.
Well, I think if you look, I give the mayor a lot of credit for wanting to take on mayoral control, and for, at the very least, his intentions there are excellent, and he's kept politics out of education. I think some of the innovative things they've done if you look at what the chancellor's done in some of the charter schools, innovative opportunities, you can bring them back into the larger system, give them a lot of credit for that. At the same point, people say, give them a grade. Is it, in that? I think it's an incomplete right now. They're about to embark on a third reorganization in September in 5 years.
Does this...
You can't, by the time you do the new reorganization and it sinks in, it'll be another 2 years down the road.
Yeah, does he have enough time on this calendar and the bullpen to affect on the governance, let alone the performance?
I think the jury's out right now. I don't know if they'll be able to affect performance on a realistic basis. Whether it happens after the fact is another question. But there are flaws in this current structure right now. Parents feel really disconnected. They don't feel as if they're part. No one consults them. People don't talk to them. There's been a running battle over a period of years between the people who work for the system, between the teachers and administrators, along with along with those who are in charge. You can't have that all the time. It really is, education in a number of ways is collaborative. What do you need to do? I hate to say it at certain points. We overlook things and try and do new things all the time. The basics in so many ways work. Longer day, longer year, focus on literacy. And as I said, more time on task is something that it's been shown over a period of time works. Tight curriculums and ones that focus on, you'd like to see things move into the future in computers and others. But at the same point, literacy always works. If you go back, if you can get students to read on grade level by third grading, keep them focused there, they will do better through the rest of their school careers. That's research. It has shown that over a period of time.
Class size, instruction.
Class size, smaller classes always work also. So those who will say there's no correlation, absolutely. You do smaller classes, it allows more time on task, it allows more individual focus. You want to go to things like Saturday class for those who are having real problems, and it creates even smaller classes, maybe from 9 to 12 on a Saturday. So there are a lot of ideas that you can put on the table. There are things that you've seen in the past that work. In the past, when I was at the Board of Education, Chancellor's District.
Right.
You took, it was failing schools. You did that. It cost money, but you capped the size of the school and the classes, smaller classes, greater collaboration, greater teacher training, a tight curriculum, more time on task, longer day, longer year. Those schools went up.
How do you involve, you're the mayor, you've got control. How do you involve parents? How do you involve the UFT? How do you involve, without giving them control of the system? How do you govern the system? Do we go to the highly centralized the decentral. I mean, we're bouncing back and forth between high centralization and now it's back to the school level. Where does power lie in the system in a Thompson administration?
I think power, at least centralization, as far as creating the structure, creating the accountability, and holding people accountable. But there are also some things that in a centralized system you have to drive. What's the curriculum? You may create some freedom within it for better performing schools, but what's the larger curriculum? What are the frameworks that you have for curriculum? Number two, there should be some things that, and you're not seeing that now, that are driven centrally. Arts, music education, I think that should be part of every student's education. I remember I learned playing musical instrument. You learn musical construction. You learn an appreciation for classics. All that in the cultural capital of the world should be part of it. We don't do that as much anymore. Or what you're starting to see is it's going to become an option. It's up to each principal in September whether they want to have that or not. They'll have $100,000 to make that decision. Wait a minute. If you're a principal and you're being held accountable individually and solely for outcomes, well, I'm going to take that money and plow it into something else. Kids, again, young people, again, will not have arts and music education. That's a mistake. So I just think that there are a lot of things that, that you can do. There are a lot of things that in a centralized, because that's what we have now. It may be pushed down to school level, but it is still a centralized system. Accountability still rests with the chancellor, and above him, the mayor. You need to drive certain things on a centralized basis, and then within the structure, you create certain freedoms.
You don't want to give the mayor a grade. What about the school's chancellor?
I think that Joel, while his intentions are good, needs to communicate better with the shareholders, with the stakeholders, with parents. They have felt shut out for years, and now because there's a lot of...
Are they shut out?
They have been.
How do you formally get them into the game?
Well, information, town halls, emails, or just creating access. Let's send something home with our students so that parents in different languages can see what's going on in schools. Right now, the reorganization for September. How much information? There's only information that's about to creep out now, or that's starting to creep out now about what's going to happen in September. Their contracts are already being let. If my child's going there in September, I want to know early. I don't want to find out in May or June.
But that's only informing. What about consulting in the sense of asking opinions, taking cognizance of the opinions, and sometimes even acting on them? It doesn't seem that this is the case here. How does a different mayor or a different school's chancellor accomplish that?
Well, a lot of that is done in public forums. Going out and meeting with groups of parents in small groups, large groups. No, going to your schools and not just saying, this is what we're going to do, but asking, how do you think we should do it? It doesn't mean that's what you do,
right?
But you take that into account, you factor it in, maybe, and understanding. You always don't have the best ideas. Other ideas are good ones too. Factor them in.
Do you create formal parental institutions at the local level?
I think they have supposedly local parent councils, even though the participation is horrible. It's poor because parents don't feel that anybody listens to those councils. If they believe that they were being listened to, they'd participate. So what you have to do is to create both the formal and informal structures that allow people to communicate, to discuss things, and then to believe, and sit back and listen and say, maybe they did listen to me on this one. I'm going to go back to the next meeting, or I'm going to go to the public forum and voice an opinion, because it appears as if they listen to other parents.
Okay, so far on Thompson's middle class agenda, we have housing, we have schools, we have jobs. What else? What else makes up this middle class agenda?
Well, one of the things that pushed the middle class out of New York City in the 70s and parts of the 80s, crime and quality of life. You need to make sure that crime stays down, that quality of life still attracts people, that you have a positive and a good quality of life. And that's one of the things that you've seen in the last 10, 12 years. It has continued, it started in the Giuliani administration. Bloomberg administration has done an even better job at that. You need to continue that, because what happens is it is the decline in quality of life at times that runs the middle class out of New York City.
What about the poor? The mayor has an equal opportunity commission, etc. The poverty numbers don't seem to budge that much. What can and must the city do?
It is back to things like education and job training and opportunity, also in looking at those disaffected youth, making sure that we work with them to create job possibilities and opportunity and training so that they can move into the world of work and then from there, into the land of the middle class. I think in the end, it isn't just, when you talk about the middle class, you're looking at, it's the survey that was done that looked at what income is a middle class
right,
New Yorker.
The drum major institute.
There are people who would say, wow, that was a high number. It's difficult to make it on 100. I mean, it used to be make it to six figures in New York City and you'll do well. Well, that's not necessarily true. But it's also those who are making $15,000, $20,000, trying to move them up so that they can join the middle class too. Across the board, it is a question of opportunity. It's a question of training and trying to bring those entry-level jobs and then find a way to move people up. So there's a lot that you have to do. It isn't just the middle class. It is moving people along into the world of work and training and education and then into other places.
Okay, let's move to my favorite subject, and I know yours, politics.
Yeah.
Let's start with the governor. Give him a grade. What's the story with Eliot Spitzer? Some strange happenings up in Albany.
Well, I think that what you're seeing is, and it's going to continue for a while, I think that, there's been one way of doing business in Albany for years. It hasn't made people happy over a period of time. I know a lot of the legislators, as well as some of the leaders, haven't been happy about the direction of government in Albany over the last few years. And on a personal basis, things have gotten increasingly difficult. Things, people aren't moving things because they're mad at the other person. I think Eliot Spitzer came into a tough situation to begin with. I think he started to shake things up. I think that right now, it is still a work in progress and will continue to be that.
Well, that's testosterone. I mean, it's almost like pervasive up there,
As I said, you're going to see, people bumping heads for a while. If you're going to try and change things, nobody's, and change a structure that has existed for years and years and years, nobody's going to be happy. So I think that as well as people have different styles, you're going to see them bumping heads in Albany for a while.
Grade them.
I don't know if there is a grade. In the first 4 months?
Too early. Well, I mean, I'm a college professor. We do semesters, so excuse me. Okay, let's get to William Thompson in the 2009 elections.
Okay.
You're running for mayor.
I think that there's a real good chance of that. I mean, nobody's going to officially declare, in spite of the
fact... No, I understand. I mean, we're 2 years out. Forget it. No, I understand that. But clearly, you've raised a substantial amount of money. You've got substantial contacts. You are out on the street, in the community. You've been doing that for a while. It looks to me that you're running. There are other people out there doing the same thing. But you got the most money? Oh, you don't know?
Well, there's a good possibility.
Yeah, okay. Talk about thinking about running for mayor and how you get to do that, both the running and the winning. Talk a little politics.
For anybody, for any candidate.
Go ahead.
It is a question of raising money. It is a question of increasing visibility. It's also a question, though, as I said, money and visibility doesn't get anybody elected. I think the 2009 election, whoever runs, and whatever that field looks like, is going to be about the future of New York City. It's going to be about the ideas that people have. It's going to be about the vision for the future. It is going to be about making sure that it is, that you talk about one city moving forward and, all the pieces of that. So it will be jobs, it will be education, it will be housing, it will be so many other different things. It will be transportation. The 2009 election, hopefully, I believe, is going to be about ideas.
Okay, so let's just look at the sort of the Democratic field as the wise guys and wise gals are looking at it. There's the Comptroller, William Thompson. There's the Bronx Borough President, Adolfo Carrion. There's Brooklyn/Queens Congressman Anthony Weiner. And there's City Council Speaker Chris Quinn. And then there are a couple other folks. Tony Avella's out there. So you've got a large number of people, 4 to 7 people. And aren't they all going to be talking about the middle class? And aren't they all going to be talking about housing? How does the Billy Thompson brand differ from the Anthony Weiner brand, for example?
As you start to move along, it will be about not just everybody talking about the middle class. I think New Yorkers have always shown an ability to look past the surface and start to take a look at what does that really mean? What are you really going to do? Is it doable? So I think you're just coming out and throwing ideas at people. If it can't be funded, if you can't finance it, if you can't pay for it, if New Yorkers know it's not real, That's not going to work. So I think it's a combination of not just ideas, are they real ideas? And I think New York is smart enough. They can, as I said, they can smell when you're not being honest with them.
Yeah, and does it seem to you that competence will be a big issue? I mean, it seems that's what I'm hearing from you, and that's sort of the Bloomberg model, whether myth or reality, that this is a highly competent administration administratively.
It becomes about not just competence, and that is people have to feel that you can lead the city. That you can run the city, but you can also lead the city. So it will be about competence, it will be about leadership, it will be about vision.
Okay, talk about the leadership and vision, because some of us have criticized the current mayor of being a very good manager, but not a very good leader, not very inspiring. How do you set out to inspire people? How do you inspire them?
It's what do you believe in? And talking about the things that you believe in and the principles that you believe in. If you've noticed in the last, year and a half, the mayor has talked about more national issues.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And it's
immigration.
And I don't think it is just because, people may say, gee, he's running for president. I think it is now. He doesn't have to run for re-election. He's term limited out. I mean, New York mayors.
So now he's leading.
Well, New York mayors have always had foreign policy. Have always had national
Comptroller,
policy.
you have a foreign policy.
But that is because of the chief investment officer of the pension funds.
Right.
But it is about now gun control and immigration and what works nationally, what works in New York. And I think New Yorkers will look and ask all candidates for mayor, what do they stand for? What do they believe in? Not just what's your vision, but what do you believe in? And I think that will start to come up bit by bit. That's part of leadership. That's part of not just managing, but moving things forward.
Okay, we've got 15 seconds. What's coming out of the Comptroller's office that you could give us a little hint? You don't have to make news, just a little hint.
Well, we're going to continue to push on a shareholder basis. We're going to continue to hold corporations accountable for what they do nationwide, what they do in New York. We're also pushing, and as I pointed out, pushing as we do tax breaks for major corporations in New York City, tying it to decent paying jobs. I think that's important, and we're going to continue to do that.
Excellent. My pleasure.
Always
Welcome
good
back.
Good seeing you, Doug.